Tell me I'm ugly. Don't really care.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Power 5 Picks. We just finished our Big Ten preview, moving on to the next conference, which happens to be the ACC. This, in my opinion, is the weakest of the now 4 power conferences, if you want to call them. Again, the Pac-12 is no longer a conference, but we have 4 conferences. The ACC, in my opinion, is the weakest of the 4 remaining. Ethan, good to have you here. I'm excited to keep talking college football with you. Before we get into the odds and the win totals and the to win the conference outright, just want a quick reminder of the 3 new teams in the ACC. We have introduced Cal from the previous Pac-12, as well as Stanford from the previous Pac-12, and then we have introduced SMU, Southern Methodist University. I believe they were in the American prior to this. So 3 new teams in the ACC. But Ethan, good to have you here. What are your initial thoughts on this conference before we get into the odds?
Yeah. First off, over under 1 year, how long it's going to take me to get used to Stanford and Cal mostly in the ACC. Yeah, it's just super weird. All these conferences being shaken up are going to be weird to get used to. But yeah, this one's going to be probably a little bit quicker than the Big Ten. We knocked our conference that we're a fandom of out of the way first. It ran a little long. ACC don't have as much in this conference that is sticking out to me. But like you said, you just said it's college football. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say for this, or just going to take you a short time for this conference to dissolve like the Pac-12. This, like I said, is a very weak conference. Getting into the odds, Florida State's on top at plus 290 to win it all. Clemson's right behind them at plus 350. These are via DraftKings. Miami behind them closely, plus 400. NC State plus 650. Louisville plus 750. And then it gets pretty dicey here. Virginia Tech plus 1,000, SMU plus 1,100, and then it gets down into the bad stuff. So, like I was saying, Clemson's been a perennial powerhouse ever since the college football playoff has been introduced. But again, now it's a 12-team playoff. Florida State's kind of coming back onto the page. Miami hasn't been good, honestly, since the glory days of like 2004. And these other teams they might have a good year every once in a while, but they're just not powerhouses. So that's why I'm saying that I could see this conference dissolving, whereas, the Georgia Techs, the Pitts, the Boston Colleges, the Wake Forests, the Stanfords, the Virginias kind of just form their own little MAC kind of conference and let the big boys, Florida State, Clemson, you can throw in Miami in there. They'll probably join the SEC or Big Ten. But, yeah, I'm going to send it to you first. Who do you like to out of these, if there's any future that you like out of the outrights to win the ACC, and do you have a predicted winner of the conference?
I'll really stick in the top 4 here. The Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and NC State. I don't like Florida State. I'll get that out of the way right now. I mean, huge thing with all 4 of these teams is different quarterback play for all except for Clemson. Clemson returns Klubnik, but DJU going for Florida State, obviously replacing Jordan Travis from last season. Cam Ward, the Washington State transfer to Miami. And then Grayson McCall, who spent, it seems like, 17 years at Coastal Carolina, is at NC State now. Of those quarterbacks, DJU is my least favorite. We saw what happened with Florida State when they lost Jordan Travis last year, given it was against Georgia in their bowl game, but 63-3 was that final. Blown out of the water. They've lost Keon Coleman and a few other nice pieces to that team. So I think 9.5. I think at minus or plus 290 to win that conference. I mean, it's just biased from what they did last year when they had Jordan Travis, went undefeated. As everyone knows, undefeated and missed the college football playoff. I think it's just bias from last year's results. I would look to play Clemson, Miami, or NC State. Clemson has a bit tougher of a schedule. Miami, I don't know. I can't decide. I would play Miami or NC State to win this conference. I like Grayson McCall a lot. I think NC State has a very winnable schedule. But I think Miami does too. Cam Ward will likely be in the Heisman conversation as he was when he's been able to stay healthy. And I think Miami, I'm going to give him the coaching edge as well. I know Cristobal can make some really dumb decisions like they did last year against Georgia Tech when they could have just knelt out the game and ended up fumbling and losing. Their season kind of went off the rails from there. They were undefeated up to that point. Don't exactly remember their finishing record, but I know they lost. They strung together a few losses after that and just never really got their season back. So I think he's going to be smarter this year. Yeah, it's a toss-up for me. Miami or NC State, I guess just for the show to give a definitive, I'll go Miami because I do think Ward is a little bit better, and I think Cristobal is can be the better coach.
Yeah, I'm glad we are in agreement with Florida State. I do not like Florida State at all this year. Again, congratulations last year. He didn't make the college football playoff for a reason. But yeah, too much hype and then pieces. I don't really like DJU. Everywhere he goes, he doesn't stay. I'm not going to blame him too much for the Oregon State thing because, again, conference realignment, Oregon State didn't really get picked up. So I don't blame him for going to a team that actually has a full schedule. But yeah, he was at Clemson, Oregon State. Now he's back at Florida State. I just don't think he's the answer. So I'm not a big fan of Florida State. I really like Clemson to win this. I like them to get back on track. But my one piece of advice, and again, it's not much of a future because it kind of ruins the whole point of the future. But I would look to get involved in Clemson after week one. They played Georgia at Georgia week one. They're going to get throttled. I think you can get a little decent price on them being 0-1 to win the ACC as opposed to 0-0. And again, it's great exposure for Clemson. They don't play Florida State until later, middle of the season. But it's a good wake up call for Clemson that Florida State will not have. So if you do like Clemson, I would say hold off until week one until they get pummeled by Georgia. Miami, like you said, they have the athletes, but Miami's always had the athletes, and I can't put money on Miami. Like you said, the Georgia Tech game, they lose a random 1 or 2 games every single year that they should not lose. And that's the problem with this ACC. These schedules, and we're going to get into the win totals here pretty shortly. These schedules are cakewalks. There's 2 hard games in every team's schedule. A couple teams like Florida State, Louisville will play Notre Dame in the out of conference game, but every other team pretty much in contention here has 2 tough games, whether that's against Clemson, Florida State, and then maybe a Miami in there or an NC State mixed in there. Everyone else on paper should be an easy win, but Miami, I worry about them just because they're not super consistent and they take games off. Do like Ward, but I think Clemson's going to walk away with it. Also really like Grayson McCall from NC State, staying home or semi-home to his old school of Coastal. Really like him. I think he's going to be gritty. I think they're going to have some wins in there. Could potentially get involved in win total, but I think Clemson's going to walk away with this. But again, wait till after they get pummeled by Georgia week one. Getting into the win totals, again, the top like 5 or 6 teams are all pretty much within half a game here. You have Florida State at 9.5, which is the top. Clemson, Miami at 9. NC State, Louisville, SMU, and Virginia Tech at 8.5, and then it kind of dips down. North Carolina 7.5, Syracuse 7, and then not even worth talking about after that. But like I said, I'll take this first. There's, it's a 12-game schedule. There's 2 tough games on every single one of these teams' schedule. So I think it would be worth taking a couple of these top teams that you like for example, you like Miami, and just taking them over the 9. I think it's very hard with their schedule to lose 3 games. Looking at Miami's game, their schedule, they only have 2 tough games, and that is week 1 at Florida, who again is not ranked, and I think Florida is going to be in the SEC. Then they play Florida State. Besides that, on paper, Miami should run through the rest of these teams. So that's like the case for a lot of these teams. I know Florida State does play Notre Dame. Clemson, like I said, does play Georgia. But the in-conference games with these schools are very easy. So I'd be debated to take the Clemson over the 9. Again, if you can wait to take a live win total, I don't really know if those exist, but I'd very much be involved in that. Also really like SMU on the win total. Again, newcomer into the ACC. Their win total's at 8.5. They're actually the 6th best odds to win the AC at 1,100. Tiny school. They do have a lot of history, but just it surprised me that their line was this high in wins and outright. This being a smaller, newer school. So I do think they could sneak away with some gritty wins there. Also, again, they have a very tough front end of their schedule, tougher And the last 6 games are the easiest games I've seen in my life. I don't have them exactly written up here, but it's pretty damn bad. So again, if you can take a later win total on these teams, I don't know if that line ever even exists, but I'll be very tempted to take SMU there. But I think Clemson's going to get over 9. I think SMU is going to get over 8.5. Then I'd be debated to take either NC State or Louisville also over that 8.5. Virginia Tech, one team we have not talked about, getting a lot of hype. I believe they ended last year on a 6-game win streak. I don't buy it. I'm not on Virginia Tech. I don't buy it at all. So I would be cautious taking a Virginia Tech team that I'm assuming is going to be pretty public on all the future betting markets. But yeah, I think Clemson's going to walk away with this, and they're probably my favorite outright and win total team in this conference.
Yeah, we're seeing pretty eye to eye, it seems, in this conference. Yeah, I just touched on it a little bit ago. I really only looked at the top 4 teams in the conference, or the top 4 projected teams in the conference. Just don't have time to dig deep into some of those shittier programs. But, you know, if we were doing this full time, we'd probably get to dive deeper into all these other programs. So please, guys, consider subscribing, throwing this video a like, comment whatever you want. Don't care what it is. Let us know your favorite bet in the ACC. Tell me I'm ugly. Don't really care. Helps us, goes a long way. So please consider doing that if you like the content. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'd look at Florida State under their win total, 9.5. Just like I said, not fully bought into Florida State. They do open with that first game over in Dublin. So they're already talking about a tough travel spot coming back home. I think they win in Dublin, and then they have Boston College at home after that. But, you know, it's tough to say they're going to lose one of those two, but it's not going to be as easy as what it looks on paper. I think Memphis is live to beat them, even though that is a home game for Florida State. SMU on the road for Florida State, I think, could be a loss. Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, you know, Florida, North Carolina, they're all in there. So I would look to fade Florida State pretty heavily this year. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I like Clemson over the 9. I think that's a very winnable. I think 9 is their basement. But I was also going to bring up exactly what you said. Wait till after the Georgia game. If they happen to beat Georgia, you missed it. Don't get involved after that. I don't think they will. Yeah, I'd wait to get involved on that. Hope to get an 8.5. And I think 9 is a bad season for Clemson. So I like that over quite a bit. It's minus 115. I also love the NC State over 8.5, minus 130. One of my favorite bets in this conference. You know, they do have Tennessee in week 2, which could likely be a loss. But outside of that, they have Clemson, and that's really the only other game that I think would be a loss for this NC State team. And they can still lose another game in there. They play WCU, who honestly I'm not even sure who that is. West Carolina, maybe. Louisiana Tech, Northern Illinois, Wake Forest, Cuse, Cal, Stanford, Duke, who's going to be way down this year, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina. So even if they lose that North Carolina rivalry game, that still puts you at 9, over 8.5. I like it a lot. I think they're live as well to beat Clemson and to beat Tennessee. So, yeah, my favorite 2 overs here, Clemson, NC State. Don't hate the Miami over either. Florida State under is kind of where I'm looking at in the top 4 projected teams.
Yeah, again, I really like Grayson McCall, that Coastal Carolina transfer that's now in NC State. I just like how he plays. He was the sole reason Coastal was good throughout his 11-year college career so far. Another one guy I want to mention before we do move on here, Kyle McCord. Don't forget about him. He is, I know we're a Big Ten podcast, but Kyle McCord, the old Ohio State quarterback, is now on Syracuse. I don't really buy into Syracuse at all, but just important thing to remember. Kyle McCord is on Syracuse. One last thing I wanted to do. I wish I did this for the Big Ten episode, but just the top 25. The AP official top 25 has been released. We have 4 ACC teams ranked in there. Florida State is rounding out the top 10 at number 10. Clemson is at number 14. Miami is at number 19, and NC State is at number 24. So pretty much the same 4 teams we just talked about. But yeah, ACC 4 top 25 teams. Very weak conference, in my opinion, besides the top 2 or 3, possibly 4 teams there. But That's kind of all I got on the ACC. Again, not a great conference. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. We will have 2 more conferences ahead of us. We do have the all and powerful SEC, as well as the Big 12. So make sure you do check those out in the next couple days/weeks. Week 0 is officially 11 days away from week 0. Next Friday is our first college football game. I know there is one good game out there. I forget who it is, but yeah, college football is coming quicker than you know. So make sure you do start looking at some future bets if that's what you're doing, as well as teams' records and whatnot. But yeah, like Ethan said, please like, subscribe, comment. We really appreciate you guys. And then, yeah, make sure you do keep looking forward for our next conferences. If you do want to see our Big Ten one, that is also on our page if you want to check that one as well. But Ethan, you have anything to add before we sign off here?
Yeah, that first big game is that Florida State Georgia Tech game in Dublin. So going right along with the ACC episode, but no, I think you nailed it. Yeah, we'll be back with the rest of the conferences. Check out the Big Ten breakdown a little bit more in our wheelhouse as Michigan and Michigan State fans. But yeah, other than that, just looking forward to week 0 officially kicking off.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next time.
You better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? Listening and cash out, that's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spot from the bottom to the top. Hey, shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast, Better in Green.